Support WrestleTalk!
Give us a subscribe.
It's fantasy booking warfare time, where today our task is to fantasy book Aleister Black's main roster debut as part of a new version of the Ministry. I'm Ollie Davis, this is Luke Owen, welcome to the WrestleRamble. We're going to flip a coin to see who goes first.
I'm
doing the flipping.
I trust you more than I
feel like Two-Face every time I do this. Heads or tails?
Queen for queen.
It's
Tails.
It's tails.
Confirm your gunnery.
So I'm going to let you go first.
Okay, so here is my fantasy booking. As those who watched on Friday's episode will know, I didn't finish this, actually on Saturday's episode rather, I didn't finish this last week. I actually finished it on the way into the studio today. So I'm feeling okay about it, but we'll see how this goes. Okay, so the jumping off point is the exact same point we're currently at in the landscape of WWE. So it's 2 weeks before WrestleMania. John Cena has beaten Kane and continues his quest to call out The Undertaker for a match at WrestleMania. Suddenly the gong goes off and The Undertaker appears on screen sitting on a throne that looks a lot like his symbol. He's decked out in druid-like robes. He addresses Cena directly. "How dare you, you call me out, John Cena? How dare you address The Undertaker like he is some mere mortal?" He tells Cena that he isn't accepting his challenge for WrestleMania because he has much bigger plans. And he says that he's found a suitable replacement for him on the grandest stage of them all, and ends with the tease, "No man is ever truly good, John Cena. No man is ever truly evil." Of course, fans of NXT will put two and two together because he's talking about Aleister Black, but John Cena and the commentators don't know who he's talking about. All but Corey Graves, because he was in NXT when Black debuted. So Cole and Coachman are wondering who The Undertaker was talking about, and Corey just sits there dumbfounded. He just sits there with this really worried look on his face. And Cole asks him what's wrong, and Corey Graves just throws down his headset and runs towards John Cena, who's walking up the ramp. And off mic we can hear Graves telling John Cena to call off this challenge. Cena looks at him puzzled, but continues to walk. So we're now 1 week before WrestleMania. It's the go-home show of Raw. Corey Graves isn't on commentary because he is spending most of the night looking for John Cena backstage. And when he finds him, he again warns him to call off the challenge. When Cena asks him why, Graves says it's not his place to say, but just call off the challenge. Cena pushes past him and walks towards the ring. Cena cuts his promo on Taker again, and Taker appears on the Titantron again on this throne. He talks about WrestleMania and the legacy of the streak. He says that in New Orleans, a new streak begins. And John Cena, I have found this new vessel of destruction. A video then plays of Aleister Black kicking dudes in the face and all the cool stuff that Aleister Black does because he is all sorts of cool. And afterwards, Graves is going nuts on commentary about how he told John Cena he should have called off this challenge. John Cena looks worried in the ring. Graves puts over how dangerous Black is, while Cole and Coachman just talk about the rumours they've heard about Aleister Black and how dangerous he can be. NXT TakeOver New Orleans. Of course, we still have that scheduled match between Black and Cien Almas. Which Black wins? He's the new NXT champion. And the show goes off the air with Mauro Ranallo screaming about what this means for John Cena and WrestleMania. So it's WrestleMania 34. John Cena makes his big entrance, and then Aleister Black makes his main roster debut, holding the NXT Championship and flanked by The Undertaker. He walks down the ramp, and he's with The Undertaker's decked out in all of his robes. The bell rings, and time stands still. They come face to face in the middle of the ring. The crowd is going nuts. Cena tries to attack. Black Mass. 1, 2, 3. Aleister Black beats John Cena clean in the middle of the ring with one move. And a new streak has begun. John Cena is now leaving the WWE to go and do films or whatever he does when he isn't doing wrestling. Raw after WrestleMania. Undertaker comes out with NXT champion Aleister Black. Cole on commentary talks about how this is all feeling very familiar. The last time The Undertaker was this evil and powerful, he took over the company. Taker announces that a new darkness is going to fall over WWE and everyone on Raw needs to take notice. This brings out the new Universal Champion Roman Reigns. Crowd erupt into boos because it's the Raw after Mania, who simply says, "Well, the last time I saw you, you were looking at the lights because I was retiring your ass." Of course, Black tries to step up to him and Taker just holds him back and be now is not the time. He says that like the rest of Raw, he will rest in peace. Late that night, we get a squash match with the new tag team champion Braun Strowman and his tag team partner, James Ellsworth, and Braun Strowman is facing off against an enhancement talent that we as wrestling fans will recognise as Donovan Dijak. And as Braun kills Dijak, completely destroys him in the ring. Gong goes off, lights go out, lights come back on. Dijak is nowhere to be seen. And in the final segment of Raw, it's Reigns and new IC champ Seth Rollins taking on The Miz and Finn Balor, who lets it be known that he wants to be facing Rollins for the IC belt. And during the match, Gong, Undertaker and Black walk out onto the stage, stopping the 4 men in their tracks. And then from out of nowhere, War Machine make their main roster debut and hit the ring and take out everyone. Obviously, Miz runs for the border. He hightails it out of it. Galanderson come out from the back. War Machine and Aleister Black and The Undertaker lay them out. And Rollins gets back in trying to hit with a chair. He gets laid out as well. And all of this, it's signalling their new finish, basically, which is the guys from the Ministry lifting up an opponent so that Aleister Black can hit the Black Mass and lay them out. Really putting over as a devastating move. Black and the Ministry of Darkness announced their plans, but also their new member, Donovan Dijak, who's coming out and he's looking a little bit terrifying. He's a big old dude. Where are we? Black wants to face Roman Reigns for the Universal Championship. War Machine wants to face Braun and Ellsworth, and Dijak wants Rollins. Taker demands Kurt Angle come out and make these matches, or there will be consequences. Kurt Angle's music doesn't hit, though. Instead, Vince McMahon's does. Vince comes out to the ring. He doesn't do his strut. He doesn't do the usual Mr. McMahon stuff. Vince gets in the ring and he says, look, Taker, I know what you're planning, because the last time you did this, you and I were doing it together. And I'm a different man now. I'm a grandfather. I'm a business owner. I can't let you go down this path. It's far too dangerous. I'm a changed man. But just as he's about to make more of a plea, bam! Black Mass. Aleister Black lays out Vince McMahon, and they take him. They try and take him away. Shane McMahon bolts down, and he just gets attacked by Donovan Dijak, and they just lay out Shane McMahon. The lights go out. When the lights come back up, Shane is in the ring, but he's all alone. The Ministry and Vince have disappeared. This leads to backlash with Shane McMahon versus Aleister Black for the return of Vince McMahon. Black wins via the Black Mass, but they release Vince anyway because this wasn't about kidnapping the McMahons. This was all about making him a statement. Elsewhere on the show, War Machine challenged Braun for the belts but are unsuccessful, and Seth retains against Balor, and Dijak attacks afterwards. So the following Raw, Ministry brag about destroying the McMahons, which brings out Stephanie McMahon. She says that they may have beaten her father, they may have beaten her brother, but there's a sudden game that they have yet to play. This sets up a war between the Ministry and the McMahons for the control of WWE. At Money in the Bank, Aleister Black is part of the Money in the Bank ladder match, and he almost wins, but Triple H and Shane McMahon stop him from winning. Elsewhere on the show, War Machine win the Tag Team Championships from Braun and Ellsworth. At TakeOver Brooklyn 4, Aleister Black loses the NXT Championship to Drew McIntyre with the help of Triple H. And this leads to SummerSlam with Aleister Black versus Triple H. Where are we? During this match, we get the debut of the newest recruit of the Ministry who attacks Stephanie McMahon at ringside. It's former Mae Young Classic entrant and the impressively tall and well-stacked Rhea Ripley. Inside the ring, Black hits the Black Mass, and he and The Undertaker stand tall over Triple H. The control of WWE is slipping away from the McMahons. Elsewhere on the show, Dijak wins the IC title from Seth, and War Machine successfully defend their tag team titles against Galanderson, and they also cost Roman Reigns the Universal Championship to Samoa Joe. So this now leads to Hell in a Cell, with it's Aleister Black, Donovan Dijak, and Rhea Ripley versus Triple H, Shane McMahon, and Ronda Rousey inside Hell in a Cell. If the Ministry win, they take control of WWE. Elsewhere on the show, War Machine successfully defend their tag team championships against Galanderson and Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins. When it looks like Shane McMahon might get the win over Donovan Dijak, Triple H pedigrees Shane and lays him out. Black gets in the ring and orders Triple H and Shane to pick up the limp body of Shane McMahon, and he delivers a killer Black Mass and pins Shane. The Ministry have won, and they now control WWE. So Triple H reveals that he had a meeting with The Undertaker and Black and realized one thing. So long as he was a McMahon, he would never be fully in control of this company. Running this show is his birthright, he claims, although obviously it's clearly not. He's the heel. He made NXT. He made 205 Live relevant again. He improves everything he touches. This company needs someone like me in charge, and the only way I can be in charge is if I'm away from the McMahons. He says, I make things great, but Vince, Shane, the rest of the McMahons, they want to make it all about them. They just want to run family-friendly shows and ruin guys like Bayley and Becky Lynch and Finn Balor. They just want to push them into the ground. They want to bury guys like Seth Rollins and push Roman Reigns instead. This promo is cut off, however, with a familiar sound. Sierra Hotel, you know the lot. Roman and Seth come out with a returning Dean Ambrose who rushes from the crowd and starts attacking everything he sees. It leads to an all-out brawl between the Ministry and the Shield. At TLC, it's Black and War Machine versus the Shield with WWE on the line once again. Elsewhere on the show, Triple H teams with Rhea Ripley to take on Ronda Rousey and Shane. During the build-up to the show, the Ministry cost Ronda her Raw Women's Championship. I think I forgot to mention that she was the champion. But they cost her the championship to Bayley, nodding to Bayley that they're doing things for the guys and girls in the back. We're helping you over the establishment of just pushing these people like Ronda Rousey who don't deserve to be pushed. But during the tag team match between Triple H and Rhea versus Shane and Ronda, Bayley runs down and trips Rhea off the apron, costing them the match. She is WWE through and through, and this leads to a feud between Ripley and Bayley over the WWE Women's Championship. But in the main event, the Ministry defeats the Shield in the TLC when Dean Ambrose turns on his Shield brothers and joins the Ministry as well. Black is the one to pull down the contract. So, as you would probably imagine, this leads to Survivor Series. Dean reveals on Raw that he's agreed with what Triple H has said. He was overlooked in favour of Roman Reigns. He was overlooked in favour of Seth Rollins. He was never given the chances that they were given, even though he was the most popular member of the Shield. Black says that winning at TLC meant that they can control the company, and he's going to face Joe for the Universal Championship at Survivor Series. Roman and Seth run down and try and attack Ambrose, but they are vastly outnumbered until they are helped by Balor Club. Builds to the traditional 5-on-5 Survivor Series elimination match between Black, Dijak, War Machine and Dean Ambrose against a dream team of sorts of Roman, Seth and Balor Club. And elsewhere on the show, Rhea Ripley beats Bayley to become the new Raw Women's Champion. So it comes down to Black and Balor in the Survivor Series main event. They have an all-out slugfest, but when Dijak runs out to help Black win, a returning John Cena jumps out of the crowd and gives him an AA through the table that had been set up, and this distraction allows Balor to score the win over Aleister Black. A Clash of Champions. Despite this setback, Black faces Samoa Joe for the Universal Championship and wins the belt. And after the match, Cena rushes the ring and the two brawl into the crowd. Don't worry, we're nearly there now. This leads to the Rumble, when Black and faces John Cena for the Universal Championship, which Black successfully wins. And Finn Balor and Bayley win their respective Rumbles. Okay, so The Undertaker revealed earlier in the night that the plan was for Dijak or Ambrose to win the Rumble so they could face Black at WrestleMania and keep the belt within the party. However, both Triple H and The Undertaker failed in doing so, which led to Finn Balor eliminating both of them to guarantee himself a Universal Championship match at WrestleMania. As the show goes off the air, Black stares down both Triple H and Undertaker. This leads to Elimination Chamber. During the build to Elimination Chamber, there's a lot of tensions between the Ministry, particularly Black with Triple H and Taker. And we get some backstage segments on Raw where WWE guys and girls tell Hunter that he knows what the right thing is to do and this isn't the right way to do it. And at Elimination Chamber, we get WWE's version of War Games as Black and War Machine take on Balor Club inside the Elimination Chamber. And it comes down to Black and Balor, with Black getting the pinfall over Balor with the Black Mass. During the match, with botched interference, Taker and Triple H accidentally get Rowan Hansen eliminated. Finally, we are here at WrestleMania. At WrestleMania, it's billed as WWE versus the Ministry. This is the last stand for the WWE as Black takes on Balor for the Universal Championship, Seth Rollins takes on Dean Ambrose in an unsanctioned street fight, Donovan Dijak defends the IC title against Roman Reigns, War Machine defend their tag team titles against Gil Anderson, and Rhea Ripley defends against Bayley, while Triple H takes on Shane McMahon, and if Shane loses, the McMahons are gone forever. So, Gil Anderson win, Bayley wins, Dijak wins, and Dean wins. But here's where the key victories come in. It's Triple H with Undertaker in his corner. As the match goes on, members of the Ministry and WWE walk out onto the ramp as this match sort of unfolds. They're really, this is a really key and pivotal moment in WWE as a company. And at the end of the match, Triple H has the match won. He has him beaten. And Shane gets onto his knees and tells him to finish it. Just do it, get it over with. He knows he's been beaten. Triple H looks at Taker, who just looks at the floor, looks a little bit solemn, a bit crestfallen. Triple H picks him up and pedigrees him. Triple H wins. The McMahons must be gone from WWE forever. But after the match, Triple H and Triple H and Taker just pick up Shane and carry him up the ramp. And they get to the top where all the WWE guys and girls are applauding Shane for his valiant effort, and they hand over this limp corpse to Vince and Stephanie, the last sight of the McMahons on WWE TV. And in the main event, Black beats Balor, continuing his undefeated streak. And this leads to our final moment of my fantasy booking, just into the 15-minute timer. On the Raw after Mania, Black and the rest of the ministry ask Triple H and Taker to explain their actions. They both talk about their history with the company and with McMahon, Vince McMahon, Shane McMahon, and Stephanie McMahon. Taker reminds Black that taking over the company is one thing, taking control is one thing, but respect is earned, and the McMahons have earned his respect. Black says that Taker hasn't earned his. Black mass. Aleister Black takes out The Undertaker and they beat up Triple H too, establishing Black as the new leader of the ministry and the new guy in WWE.
Okay, mine's a little bit more, a little bit smaller scale than that. It's more of a singles feud rather than a year-long encompassing story of pretty much every talent in the company. But I must applaud that. That was very good.
Thank you.
So mine begins after WrestleMania 34. So it's the Raw after Mania, and we have our first video package. And it's a voiceover, and there are 3 silhouettes in the background. You can't really see them, but there's a lot of black and white satanic imagery flashing up on the screen, like witchcraft stuff, Aleister Crowley, and occult symbolism, and that's cut in with real-day news footage. So, and the voiceover is all about power and how people get power and how people at the top have seized this power for themselves and they won't let it go. And it's at the expense of everyone else. And you get a montage of powerful real-world people like Putin, or shots of the G8 and shots of the city and the stock market. And they're all driven by a secret power, one that is his birthright. And it's very Iron Man 3, very Mandarin-like, because I watched that recently, and then it just says coming soon at the end, next week. So this is the build-up to Backlash, but nothing happens at Backlash. Second week, second video package. It's the same again, content about power being amassed at the top, and a montage of powerful figures. But this time, in all those powerful figures, there's a flash of Vince McMahon. There's a flash of Triple H. There's a flash of Stephanie McMahon. Not really, it's never overtly said, but it's more subtle than that. And out of the darkness, one of the silhouettes is revealed to be Jimmy Jacobs. And he says, that they're all driven by a secret power, and one that is his birthright, and he's here to take it back. So, third week now. This is the third video package. Jacobs is in full view with the 2 silhouettes behind him, and he just says, the world isn't black and white, it's just black. Raw is about to be turned upside down. The age of black is coming. Coming soon. And then the fourth week, which is the go-home week for Backlash, it's Jacobs does, again, the same style of content, but this one ends with Aleister Black stepping out the shadows. Next to him, of course, there's still another silhouette that you can't see. No words, and he just says, well, Jacobs says, Black never speaks. He's taking the power back. It's his birthright. The Age of Black begins next week on Raw. So then you have Backlash, which wraps up all the loose ends from WrestleMania, and the main event of the post-Backlash Raw is Black's first match. And it's against just a jobber, but a very well-built, imposing-looking jobber, and it's a huge entrance for Black, makes him look big-time. He raises coffin style from up the ground like he does in NXT, and he enters with Jacobs. And Black just looks supremely cool, and they get into the ring. Black's just standing there, nonplussed. The jobber goes for him. Boom, Black mass. Instant win, but he doesn't go for the pin, Black. He just sits down cross-legged. At which point, Jacobs crawls into the ring with a spike. This is his trademark spike from Ring of Honor, and it's actually kind of like it's a writing utensil. So he inscribes, not like cuts, but it makes a mark, an insignia, a sigil on the jobber's forehead. The referee's like, what the hell's going on here? But Black makes the pin, because the guy's still knocked out, and the referee counts 3, 1, 2, and on the third, Black smudges the sigil on the forehead. This is a tried and tested black magic ritual. And Jacobs says off mic, into the camera that Age of Black has just begun. So in the next couple of weeks, Black continues to squash jobbers with this sigil finish where he smudges it, and this is intersected or introduced with those same style video packages where most of it's in silhouettes, but it cuts real world news footage with Jacob's promos about power. And he's talking about the Age of Black being dominant, and he's going to keep on winning until all of WWE is in darkness. And it's not just him and Master Black. No. She is already here and will burn WWE to the ground for something new to rise from its embers. And then Jacobs occasionally throws some shade at Rollins in these bits. He's the only person that they really single out. And in these promos and ensuing weeks, he explains the dark magic act. So every time you smudge that sigil, he's smudging it in the moment of victory. So this is in the 3 count. And that's binding his soul to victory. You think power. It's all bounded into Black's essence. No one can beat Black. Seth Rollins' music hits. They're now in the ring, so an in-ring promo. And Seth comes out, and Seth and Black stare at each other. Black cool as a cucumber as always. And Seth is shouting at Black. Black's not saying anything. Seth starts to shout at Jimmy over Black's shoulder, and he's saying, what the hell are you doing here? And Cole says on commentary, it looks like they know each other from before. I'm so stupid, I watch nothing but the main roster of WWE. And Jimmy goes to hit Seth with the spike, but Rollins dodges, super kicks Jimmy, and then looks back. Black's just standing there, unwavering, unmoving. There's a face-off commercial. Next week, Raw, in a backstage promo, Jimmy teases that he knows Seth's secret. He knows Seth's dark past. He is not a good man like he claims to be now. He's just as dark as the Age of Black. Hey, Aleister, he could join us. Black just shakes his head. Okay, we'll just have to destroy his soul instead. So in the following weeks, Jacobs interferes in Seth's matches. Sometimes it costs him the victory, sometimes it doesn't, but there's always a level of frustration. Rollins finally accepts a grudge match against Black. This is heading into Money in the Bank. On the go-home show, Jacobs says he'll finally reveal Seth's sordid history the night after Money in the Bank. So this is mind games now. Seth knows whatever the result is, the next night his big secret's going to come out. So Jacobs, in the Money in the Bank match, Jacobs is constantly interfering in the Seth versus Black bout. But then out of nowhere, near the end, after they've gone about 15 minutes, Charlotte walks out in the crowd covered in blood, Carrie style. Or, a substance that looks like blood. And this distracts Rollins, letting Black hit the Black Mass for the win. He does the sigil mark. Now Black has not only the victory, but victory over Seth embedded into his essence, into his soul. It's sort of bound there, using this dark magic ritual. The post-Money in the Bank Raw, Jimmy Jacobs is cutting in one of his lovely video promos again, pre-tape promos with all the news footage. People keep on asking what happened to Charlotte. She says she doesn't know. I have no idea what's happened. That she was just sprayed in the face and pushed through a door. That's all she knows, and then she stumbled into a crowd. There was nothing actually dark magic about it. It was all a trick. But Jacobs says in this pre-tape promo, we've got a new question. What happened to Charlotte? I'll answer that later. First, the one I said I would answer, Seth's sordid history. So again, in one of those lovely intercut newsreel footage bits, he says, before the Authority, before the Shield, before Seth tried to convince you all that he's a good man, that he's slain a king, he was Jimmy's first student. And this cuts in Ring of Honor footage from back in the day of the Age of the Fool, which was Tyler Black back then. Of course, the same name as Aleister Black. And he says, he was called Tyler Black back then, but now there's a new Black. Seth Rollins renounced that name, and now Aleister Black has surpassed Seth in every way, and they're going to destroy that failed project together. And then the following weeks it frames itself around the debate of Seth saying there's no such thing as magic. It's all psychological tricks. And, people do these rituals, and it unconsciously makes them very, very focused on these goals. That's Seth's argument. He's a skeptic. Whereas Jimmy and Aleister Black, but although he's mute, his argument is But hey, it's working, so there's got to be something in it. And that, it sort of makes Seth wonder, and he's getting teased by his dark past. Maybe that is the way to victory. Sure, he's a man that's been corrupted before. Just check out the authority stuff. So the Raw general manager, whoever it is at this point, is angry that Jacobs is constantly interfering in the matches and using the sigil finish. So he's going to grant Rollins a rematch. Jimmy Jacobs is going to be in a shark cage. We're bringing the shark cage thing back, people, and it's at Extreme Rules, which is kind of a gimmick-heavy show anyway. On the go-home show, however, Charlotte is sort of cutting a promo with Ember Moon, because Ember Moon won the Money in the Bank briefcase or whatever, and Charlotte is... Charlotte's a champion at this point, so, they've got a thing going on, and that promo is interrupted by Black and Jacobs. And Charlotte says, hey, tell me, I want to know who attacked me at Backlash and covered me in a red liquid and pushed me out there. And that the Money in the Bank winner, and up until now super babyface, Ember Moon, just gets a big smile on her face and attacks Charlotte from behind. Rollins runs down for the save, but Rollins and Charlotte are beaten down by Black, Jacobs, and Moon. Ember is the she they were talking about. I don't know if you noticed their Ember reference in a previous promo. So this is Extreme Rules now, the shark cage match. The finish of the match comes when Jacobs, of course, because it's a shark cage match, drops the spike to Black to use behind the referee's back. Moon is distracting the referee. Black hits Rollins from behind the referee's back, and after Rollins has been beaten, the cage is lowered. But what they do is they sort of strap in a harness Rollins' torso, and his arms out like this, sort of by his side, to the cage. And then Moon commands the people backstage in the backstage truck. She gets back there and interferes with stuff. The cage slowly elevates, lifting Seth Rollins in a kind of Christ-like cross. CrossFit Jesus, he kind of looks a bit like some depictions of Christ. And he's just hanging there, and the Age of the Black pose beneath him, and smudge another sigil. So Seth has now been beaten twice, but both have come from interference. Because, of course, Jacobs dropped the spike there, and he demands one final rematch where no one can interfere. It's a Hell in a Cell match at SummerSlam. The build to this is all about the Age of Black, saying Seth really is a dark man, and Seth is saying those days are far behind me. And now we're at SummerSlam, and Black and Rollins just have a brutal brawl inside the cage for the vast majority of the match. And Jacobs and Moon are outside. They can't get in. And finally, they come crashing through the door. And Jacobs right away goes to interfere on Rollins. But Black, in his first words since debuting, just says no. And Jacobs stops. And then you say, oh, Black really is the powerful person here. Jacobs is just the mouthpiece. So Black then just climbs to the top of the cage, waiting for Rollins to get up there with him. And Moon goes to try and take out Rollins. Rollins moves out of the way. Ember takes herself out by clattering into the side of the cage. And Rollins comes up to meet Black on the top of the cage. And they're up there now, and they're just having a very tense, slowly done brawl. And Black eventually gets the better of Seth, and he unhooks one of the supporting cables that brings down the Hell in a Cell, and he ropes it round the bottom of Seth's legs, so round the ankles. And Rollins gets up, and he's sort of hopping, and he can't do anything, and he's just like, finish me then, if this is what it's about. And Black goes, okay, well, didn't say okay, but he hits him with a black mass. Rollins falls backwards through one of the panels and falls down, but he is suspended in the ring upside down. Now an upside down cross with his arms going out like that, and he just passes out from the blood rushing to his head. So Black walks down, gets down the cage, and he goes in. Moon and Jacobs are telling the referees, no, don't help him, check him, he's passed out. Black wins. And yes, that's the Age of Black, and they pose there, the final visual of this, the culmination of the first feud, one that Black has won all 3 encounters of, posing there with an Antichrist symbol, Seth Rollins. Well, that's both of the pitches. We were just inside the 50 minutes. There is an eye above our heads. Click that, and you'll be able to vote for whose fantasy booking warfare you preferred best. Oof. Do you want to have a few words about... I loved yours. I thought yours
thanks,
was brilliant.
Man. I really like the insignia stuff. No trios championship, so that was no Hardy compound. So, we were going in very different directions this time. I liked it. And I there was a moment when you said that we did the no. My first thought was like, oh, it's Caesar's first words in Planet of the Apes.
Yes, yeah. Well, everything was modelled on Planet of the Apes. No, yours was... we couldn't have gone... more different approaches. I went for a singles feud over a couple of months. You went for the whole company.
I tried to book the most Vince Russo attitude era feud I possibly could.
There was so many good bits in yours, though. I really enjoyed the schmoz of it.
Such a schmoz. In fact, the comments I'm most expecting is I was like, couldn't keep up with Luke's story. Like, it's because it zigs when it should zag. It just goes all over the show.
Wow. Well. That's what happens when you give Luke an extra weekend.
You sit
me by everything.
You sit me by a pool where I can just read for a bit and read Captain America comics, and all of a sudden I'm like, well, I've got it.
Yeah, there you go. Well, that's all we've got time for this episode. I hope you've clicked the eye by now. Click the videos that have just appeared on our laps to catch up with the latest WrestleTalk news or WrestleRamble. Subscribe to this channel, and please do subscribe to the podcast version wherever you get your podcasts from. This has been Luke Owen. I've been Ollie Davis, and that was some fantasy booking.